October 2003. Couple of things before I jump into this. First of all, a special shout out and thank you to Thomas, who sent me a couple of boxes of wonderful books. Thank you very much, Thomas. Hopefully, I can say your name on here. Uh, um, it was a big surprise. Wasn't expecting it, which I suppose is the definition of a surprise. Very excited to start digging into some of those books, mixing them in with all the other thousands of books I have to read. I did send you an email. Maybe check your spam. I don't know. But thank you very much to Thomas for all those great books. Second of all, we're going to see how this goes. I'm recording this Monday evening after working a 10-hour day because this past weekend we lost power. And I could have recorded, but it would have been in the dark. Some people might say that would be an improvement. But I have to be able to read my notes. So uh, here we go. We'll see if it seems like it already is affecting me, having worked all day. And I notice my glasses seem a little dark. I just came in from outside. We'll see if they've completely cleared up by the end of this video. Anyway, October 2003, I started the month with The Books of Magic, The Children's Crusade by Carla Jablonski. This is the third book in the series, based on the comic book created by Neil Gaiman. Ooh, problematic at this time. Neil Gaiman controversy going on at the time of recording, not the time that I read this book. Anyway, Books of Magic is about Harry Potter, Timothy Hunter, who is going to be the greatest magician in the DC universe. And in this book, there's a secret world for children in danger. And, but someone's trying to destroy that world, get at the children. And Timothy Hunter's still just trying to learn how to use his powers. And so he has to save this secret place and save the children that are there. I enjoy these stories. Books of Magic was a pretty cool comic book. And this is a novelization. So that's Books of Magic, The Children's Crusade, Carla Jablonski. After that was East of Desolation, by Jack Higgins. And I believe this is a standalone. Our main character is a pilot named Joe Martin. And a plane has crashed in Greenland. And the name on the manifest doesn't match the corpse in the plane. And Joe is hired by the widow and the insurance company to fly them up there and investigate. But things aren't what they seem to be, because this is a Jack Higgins thriller. Good stuff. East of Desolation by Jack Higgins. Then we have a book that I think I might have to find and read again because it sounds pretty fun. Scream Queen by Ido Van Belkom. And this is about a reality show. There are 6 contestants. They're supposed to stay in a haunted house. And whoever wins, whoever is crowned Scream Queen, will star in a horror movie. This is all being done by these B horror movie creators, the Gowan brothers. But of course, it's a real haunted house. Things are going to get spooky. I don't remember too much about it, anything about it, but I like the sound of it, so I may have to read it again. Scream Queen by Ido Van Belkom. Then we have Victorian Age Vampire, Book 1, A Morbid Initiation by Philip Buell, or however you say his name. And this features Regina Blake. It takes place in the Victorian Age, and Regina is in England with her mother. Her father and brother are in Egypt or something. And her mother dies, but it could be murder. She's investigating it, and she's going to be sort of pulled into the world of darkness. This is a World of Darkness, White Wolf Publishing story. She meets Victoria Ash, who is going to be sort of her guide. I think Victoria might be a vampire. But the first book in a Victorian age World of Darkness vampire story. Which, pretty interesting. Excuse me. I followed that up with Stone Cold by Robert B. Parker. This is a Jesse Stone novel. Jesse Stone, Sheriff of Paradise, and he's dealing with two cases in this book, a gang rape of a teenage girl, and there's this loving couple who have moved into town, but turns out they're serial killers. So Jesse Stone has to figure all this out. I love Robert B. Parker. Spencer, one of my favorite characters. Love the Spencer series. Jesse Stone, not quite as good in my opinion, but still entertaining stories. So Stone Cold by Robert B. Parker. Then we have Victorian Age Vampire Book 2, The Madness of Priests by Philip Buell. And in this, what's her name? Regina Blake finds that her mother is under the control of blood sorcerers. So with Victoria Ash, some other characters, she's going to try and rescue her mother. And her father, I think, has come up from Egypt or wherever he was to England to figure out what's going on. Victorian Age Vampire Book 2, The Madness of Priests, Philip Buell. And I followed that with Victorian Age Vampire Book 3, The Wounded King by Philip Buell. And in this one, Regina, right? I gotta keep checking. Regina is finally reunited with her mother, but that doesn't mean things are happy. There's, all sorts of crazy vampire stuff going on, and someone's trying to take over the whole British Empire. A vampire's trying to take over the whole British Empire, I think. And, Regina, her mother, I think her father's back now with the group. Victoria Ash, there's some other guy trying to save the world, essentially. So Victorian Age Vampire Book 3, The Wounded King by Philip Buell. The end of that trilogy. But Victorian Age vampire stuff, again, set in the world of darkness, from White Wolf Publishing. Some interesting stuff. Switching gears now, we've got Hocus Corpus by James Tucker. This is a medical mystery, but more on the mystery than medical, I think. Although the author is a doctor, but our main character is Dr. Jack Merlin, who's a surgeon and an amateur magician. And so he, excuse me, this is the second book in a series, and 4 patients over a very short amount of time have died after very simple, successful surgeries. And Dr. Jack Merlin's going to start looking into it, and spoilers, insurance companies are the bad guy. Hocus Corpus, James Tucker. After that, 7 seasons of Buffy, edited by Glenn Yeffeth. And this is, I had to write down the subtitle, or whatever you would call it. Science fiction and fantasy writers discuss their favorite television show. And this has essays from folks like David Brin, Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough, Sherilyn Kenyon. Those are the 3 names I wrote down. So just a bunch of authors in sci-fi and fantasy talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm a huge fan of that show, so I wanted to read something like this. I find that kind of stuff quite interesting. 7 seasons of Buffy, edited by Glenn Yeffeth. Next up, I have the book, and I forgot to grab it earlier, so you get to see me reach for it. This is Profoundly Disturbing by Joe Bob Briggs. Shocking movies that changed history. And let's see. These milestone films pioneered new cinematographic techniques, subversive narrative structure, and guerrilla marketing strategies that would change the face of mainstream cinema. Most importantly, they expanded what could be shown on screen and introduced us to a new, darker side of the cinema. So it talks about, I'm just going to read you the list of movies that he talks about here. And this is in chronological order: The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Mom and Dad, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and God Created Woman, The Curse of Frankenstein, Blood Feast, The Wild Bunch, Shaft, Deep Throat, The Exorcist, Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Drunken Master, Reservoir Dogs, and Crash, the good David Cronenberg Crash, not the crappy Oscar-winning Crash. So he talks about these movies and what they did for cinema, and he also has, what do they call it? Further disturbance, where he makes all sorts of recommendations. Excuse me. So, like for Crash, he talks about a bunch of other Cronenberg movies, and then he mentions a bunch of movies that Cronenberg is in, and then some documentaries that Cronenberg is in. For The Exorcist, talks about the other Exorcist movies, and then The Omen, and the Omen movies, and anything that sort of fits in that Exorcist style of movie. So really, really fascinating book. One that I have been meaning to reread, just because I find it so interesting. And Joe Bob Briggs has a nice writing style. So that's Profoundly Disturbing by Joe Bob Briggs. And then we have Small Town, Strange World by Mark Clapham. Clapham? Clapham. And this is, I wrote this down, the unofficial and unauthorized guide to Smallville. So, like any other book like this, which I've talked about these kinds of things before, he covers all of Smallville that had come out up to this point, and the episodes and the people, the characters, the actors, just looking at the entire Smallville TV show. I think I was probably still watching the TV show at this time. I stopped around season 5. Season 4 was terrible. Season 5 was a roller coaster. It would have a fantastic episode, and then one of the worst episodes I'd ever seen, and then a really good episode, and then a horrible episode. So I stopped watching it, except for some exceptions. I think I've mentioned all this before, but Small Town, Strange World by Mark Clapham. That's 3 nonfiction books in a row. But then I read Tragic Wand by James Tucker. This is the third of the Dr. Jack Merlin series, and this one has to do with a crazy plastic surgeon and the mob. It's I don't remember too much more about it, but obviously I must have enjoyed the other ones if I read 2 and 3 here. I don't remember. Must have been some time in the past that I read the first one. So they must be at least okay. Tragic Wand, James Tucker, if you want to read about an amateur magician who's also a surgeon solving mysteries. And that was the penultimate book in October of 2003. And the final book is Smokescreen by Kyle Mills. I don't remember a lot of details, but I do remember that I really, really enjoyed this book. It's about a guy named Trevor Barnett, who is sort of he's a trust fund kid guy. He's a grown up, but a trust fund kid. And he works for the tobacco companies, and there's some tons of negative stuff coming at the tobacco companies. So they promote Trevor Barnett to like executive vice president of something. They give him this huge promotion. Basically, they want to make him a scapegoat, but he's going out and saying crazy things. He's in an interview and starts just talking about ways people can stop smoking. And at one point, he even says, well, maybe all the tobacco companies should just stop making cigarettes. So he's creating this whirlwind of hype and panic amongst the tobacco industry, and it's sort of they have to shut him up, but they gave him this promotion and put him out there, so they have to be subtle about it. And it's I thought it was very very funny, with some very interesting things to say. Um, I was later reminded of the is it Aaron Eckhart who's in Thank You for Smoking, which I thought was a very very funny movie. I believe I read Smokescreen first, but yeah, Smokescreen by Kyle Mills. I highly recommend it for just I don't know what you'd even call it. It's got some thriller elements, I suppose, because people start coming after Trevor Barnett. It definitely has lots of comedic, at least moments that I thought were comedic. Um, really, I liked this book a lot. Smokescreen by Kyle Mills. And that's it. That's what I read in October of 2003. And, excuse me, my question for this video is, do you watch reality shows? And I suppose more specifically, do you watch reality competition shows? Because there's a difference between, Survivor and The Greatest Race and something like The Real World, where it was supposed to be you're just throwing a bunch of people together in a house, see what happens. And I'm not a huge fan. Oh, secondary question before I get to my answer. Would you participate in an existing reality show? Would you go on Survivor or The Amazing Race? You can see those are the two I know. Or Big Brother. And would you go on a reality show like in Scream Queen, where you have to stay in a haunted house and have these competitions? And let's say not everybody wants to be an actor, so the prize isn't necessarily, well, you can star in a movie or get $1,000,000, let's say. Uh, Keep those who have no acting ambitions in this. Um, so for me, not a big fan of reality shows. I've never watched Survivor. I did watch the first couple seasons of The Real World, but not like on a regular basis. Um, I watched Beauty and the Geek, which lasted a few seasons, and it took essentially the premise was you would have these gorgeous but less than intelligent women and these super intelligent geeky dudes, and you put them in a house together and you team them up, and the challenges would either be something, I want to say superficial, but I don't want to say superficial, but I can't think of something about beauty or social skills or things like that, or it would be something like building a toy rocket or solving equations or something, and then people would be voted off and stuff. I did watch that, and there was a show called King of the Nerds that I watched because I was a nerd, where they just put a bunch of, again, nerds together, and they had to do nerdy things, nerdy competitions, and so I watched those. But as I said, I've never watched Survivor. I've never watched The Amazing Race. I've never watched Big Brother. I've seen maybe one episode of the singing one, the big one, the first big one. I can't even, oh, American Idol. I watched, I think, the first season of, well, I was going to say America's Got Talent, but that's a talent competition, not really a reality show like we're talking about. Anyway, getting way off track here. So's American Idol. It's not the same thing. There was a comedy show one. I can't remember what it was called. Last Comic Standing. I think they all had to live together, and you got that behind the scenes drama and stuff. And then comedy competitions. I watched that, and I watched the tattoo one that I can't think of the name of. I think they all had to live together, and there was behind the scenes drama, but not much. Oh, and I guess I've watched more, but more competition-y. Face Off on Sci-Fi. They all lived together. There was almost no drama. Drama was incredibly rare on that show. I was watching it because it was about special effects, makeup, and stuff. Um, so, despite contradicting myself and having watched a few, although there's so many, I would not say I'm a fan of reality shows. Um, and again, if we're going to get into, like, I've never seen Jersey Shore, never seen any Real Housewives show, that kind of stuff, especially if there's no competition, no interest in that whatsoever. I don't want to see people, I don't want to see train wrecks. Um, and then, would I stay in a haunted house to win a prize? I mean, yeah, why not? I'd stay in a haunted house. If it was just a matter of being in the haunted, the problem is they're filming it. It's a competition show, which would just annoy me. And I don't get along well with people. Um, but I have no problem staying in a haunted house. If it were just, hey, stay in this house for a week to try and win some money, that'd be different. It's the dealing with people and being in the competition thing that would annoy me. But I wouldn't say no. What about you? What are your thoughts? Do you watch them? Would you participate in them? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronin5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. And on Blue Sky, I am @EL Smith. That is all I have for you this week. So until next week, read more books.